Okay, welcome to day 80 of trying to become a SOC analyst. We're on LetsDefend, working through our alerts. We've had a critical alert pop up today, so in true SOC fashion, we need to prioritize critical first, so let's assign that to ourselves. It's SOC 107, privilege escalation detected, and looking at the alert, what have we got here? JuicyPotato.exe, device action allowed. We've got a download, we've got a hash, and it's on one of our internal endpoints. So let's jump in and see what we can figure out. I guess I have a bit of a head start on this one just because I know of JuicyPotato from a few hack the box, capture the flag events. You can use it in Windows to get elevated permissions. In the hack the box scenario that I was using it, I used it to spawn a reverse shell with admin permissions. So we do know it's a malicious tool, or I know it's a malicious tool, but let's actually have a look and see. So we've got the hash. We can go to VirusTotal. So hacking tool or hack tool, JuicyPotato. Threat categories, hack tool, Trojan. I believe, simply put, you can take advantage of if an account has impersonate available. You can use it to elevate your privileges, and like I said in the scenario I used it, is you can use it to spawn a reverse shell which will give you those elevated permissions. So basically it gives you full control over the PC. So we definitely don't want that running on our network. So we do know from the VirusTotal hash that it is the malicious JuicyPotato that I'm thinking of. We know that it has been allowed. So if we grab the logs of the endpoint, well, considering we do have the log window already open, let's have a look at that to start with. The time period that we're looking for is January 21. So we've only got the one log on that day. It's looking like a suspicious URL, network.exe get. The process it spawns, it's also looking rather suspicious, and it's come from Excel. So this could be like a VBA style script that's pulling its payload. Let's have a look at that URL in VirusTotal. So it is classed as malicious. Downloads PE. So we don't have a lot of information about what the actual thread is. Looks like it's no longer up, unauthorized, but we do have some community reports, but nothing. Oh, we've got the CVE, so that's actually helpful. So let's have a quick look at what the CVE is. Allows the attacker to run arbitrary code in the context of the current user by failing to properly handle objects in memory, aka Microsoft Office. So it's just strange because does not seem related to the JuicyPotato file that our alert has spawned from. It was Jan 31, Jan 31, 2021. So it is the right alert. All right. Source address is correct too, and so it's definitely coming from our endpoint. So on that note, let's actually look at the endpoint. It was called Richard Prod, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So it's already been contained. In this setup, it just means that I've had another alert. They only have so many endpoints in LetsDefend. I think I'm on my 80th ticket or something, so I've probably dealt with this endpoint in another alert, so just ignore that. But we are seeing the Excel process, which is what we then saw in the logs, and we're also seeing the JuicyPotato process, and this is the spawn from the Excel. It looks like Microsoft shared equation, and these are all run on a date. It doesn't tell us when that started, but the this EQN process is ran on the 31st, and our JuicyPotato is also ran here. We can follow off the virus total here, but it will be the same hash that we saw in our ticket. Yep. So hack tool Trojan, that's what we saw already. If we do have a quick look at the relations tab, just looking at any domains that it reaches out to, any C2 addresses, we saw in the logs that it reached this 5.135 IP, even though it looks like it's potentially related to something else. But just have a quick scan through the known IPs on this one. Lots of internal IPs, because normally you contact the DC, so it's the local network. But we're on to 2. Just get down to see if there's any in the 5 range now. So there's 52. So there's not that IP that we're seeing. But to make sure we've fully investigated everything, we will also see if the IP comes up. So it's actually getting reported as clean, and we've got that same note relating to that CVE from Excel. Okay, so it's a bit of a strange ticket, just because normally this JuicyPotato privilege escalation, it contacts like the account that has, like, if your account has impersonate enabled, it can use it to escalate your account privileges. So when we're seeing in the logs this other process reaching out to a malicious URL to fetch the next stage of the exploit or payload, it's a bit it's the opposite of what this is. Just simply should be escalating the privileges of the user, getting them admin access onto the domain or the box, whereas this is more of a malicious malware. It's pulling down the second stage. So we've got sort of two things going on, is all I'm trying to illustrate here, on the same sort of time period. So this looks like it was most likely spawned via the Excel, and then this looks like it's more likely ran by the user. But I guess they could be linked. If this was, say, this is a backdoor or Trojan, the user gets in, they have just user access, and they're trying to privesc to escalate their privileges. They then get caught running JuicyPotato trying to escalate their privileges. So that might be the better way of looking at it, that this is the entry and it doesn't seem to have been flagged in the alerts, but as I've tried to escalate privileges, that has been scanned and been alerted, and so now we're onto them at the point where they were trying to escalate privileges, but they had already got entry. So I think that actually is a perfect description of what's happened. So let's start the playbook. So I know I've been mumbling on about that for a little bit, and I probably should be better at just starting the playbook and following what they want us to do. But I feel like you don't learn as much that way. If I'm just clicking along and doing what it says, I feel like I'm not really learning or investigating. So that's why I try and figure it out myself first before running the playbook. And then you just click through the playbook. At least that's, for me, how I seem to learn. So we do have unknown or unexpected outgoing internet traffic, but that's not what spawned this alert. This alert was spawned by the privilege escalation. So I've learnt from previous alerts that when running the playbook, it's not about what you found in your investigation, it's about what the alert relates to. So in this case, it's other for the privilege escalation. We've checked the malicious process and we saw that JuicyPotato was still running on the endpoint, so it's not been quarantined. We've looked at it in VirusTotal and also from some personal knowledge. We do know it's malicious. We could run it in hybrid analysis or any.run, but it's fairly clear that it's malicious. It's a well-known program, and VirusTotal has got 56 vendors all flagging that hash as malicious. So malicious. Check if someone's accessed the C2 address. So with the JuicyPotato process, I don't believe it's reached out to an external address, but we do have this C2 address here. And like I was trying to explain before opening the playbook, I believe this is the entry. So we are going to say that there was a malicious URL contacted. So I'm going to say it was accessed, and we'll end up putting that in our notes. With containment, it's already been contained from a previous ticket. So we'll put this IP, or URL, sorry, I should say. And we'll need to put in our hash, which we've got in here for JuicyPotato. And the other hash I'd like to add in is this one that we saw reach out to that URL. So if we also follow that hash to VirusTotal, file distributed by Google. Chrome installer. Well, I'm not sure. Then have I diagnosed that incorrectly? Is that, well, that's definitely not the Chrome installer, and it has been reached by that process, so I'm going to include it. It's spawned from Excel, so it's definitely not Chrome update or anything like that, like it's trying to say on VirusTotal there for that hash. So I'll put in the MD5. Next, I'll pause the video and write some notes. Okay, so that took a little bit to write up. We've mapped it to MITRE attack technique, exploration of privilege escalation, user execution, and ingress tool transfer. We've done the notes in the 5W style. Malicious activity was detected on host Richard Prod. IP, we've got their internal 172 address. Their initial access likely involved a user interacting with the malicious Excel document. What? SOC 107, privilege escalation detected, triggered after execution of JuicyPotato. We've got the hash. A known privilege escalation tool used to abuse token impersonation vulnerabilities on Windows systems. Investigation shows their infection chain began with excel.exe spawned EQNEDT32exe, which then downloaded a malicious payload from, and we've got that malicious URL. This indicates exploitation of malicious Office document leading to execution of attacker controlled code. The attacker then used JuicyPotato to escalate privileges on the system. When, we've got the timestamp. Where, hostname Richard Prod, the source address, the 172 internal, their initial payload source, which was that malicious URL with network.exe, process involved excel.exe. We saw that running on the endpoint, so we saw that chain of Excel spawning this process, and then our assumption, or my assumption, is that once their attacker got entry via the Excel abuse, they ran JuicyPotato to try and escalate. The why, the alert was triggered due to detection of a known privilege escalation tool on the endpoint. Analysis confirmed a malicious document-based infection chain leading to execution of a payload and subsequent use of JuicyPotato for privilege escalation. Their external URL is confirmed malicious, and the process chain is consistent with exploitation of Office vulnerabilities. Their attacked endpoint was isolated to contain the incident and prevent further attack activity. So I'm pretty pleased with those notes. We'll finish the playbook. Sometimes LetsDefend is a bit fussy about the line count, so I'll just trim the notes down a little bit just to get it through. So that's allowed it to go through. Before we close, I'll open the field to close their alert. It's a true positive. I'll paste our notes in. The one thing just wanted to show is we have the email logs too. We don't have in the chain. We see that it does look like Richard ran a malicious Excel document that spawned this attack chain, but how did that Excel document get to Richard? So if we have a look, in fact, I'm guessing I've already done the alert for a malicious email. So this is what would have spawned that whole chain. It's on our time frame, January 31, and there's an attachment. And if we, obviously it's been classed as deleted, so I must have done this in another alert, but this would have been their initial entry point. So the email has emailed an attachment which has got the malicious Excel document. Richard's then ran we don't have the endpoint up anymore, but if we go to the endpoint, we can see that Richard then ran Excel, which then spawned that process, which then reached out to the C2 address, which we saw in the logs, which was that one there, which then got their attacker access to the endpoint, and then they ran the JuicyPotato, which spawned our alert here to try and escalate their privileges. So that pretty much putting the whole chain together. So there we go, we're on our 72-day streak, and here's our alert. So we did get everything correct, and I did and ah about this when we were doing the initial playbook. With JuicyPotato, it didn't reach out to any address, and I did mention that as I was running the playbook, and then we pieced it together that this was probably what gained entry to the endpoint, and then they ran JuicyPotato to escalate the privileges. And so I said I was going to mark the C2 as being accessed because of this. So that was a mistake. And it's something I probably should have known whenever running the playbook. It's always talking about, and I think I even said the exact same thing in this video, is the playbook's always talking about the alert that you're dealing with, not what you find in your investigation. So we lost 5 points on that one, but overall I think I've pieced the whole attack chain together quite well. Okay, I'll take the 5 point hit, but I think I've pretty much mapped the attack chain from the entry from email through to the Excel being ran, reaching out to the malicious C2 address, pulling down that network.exe file, which has gained their attacker access to the endpoint. They've then ran JuicyPotato to try to escalate privileges, and then we've caught it. So, yep, lesson learnt on that one for the C2 address being accessed, and I'll see you on day 81. Thank you.